grandfather do this all the time. But it takes a while. So he's got this box of matches in his pocket, and they think that what happened is that the fire hit that cardboard box of matches, which are magnesium tipped, and so they just went whoosh, all of them, and that probably ignited the whole thing. My guess is at that point when he's in the bathroom, he falls in his effort to, put himself out. As Joe said, take the damn robe off, but instead he's trying to put himself out. He probably fell. He probably hit his head and knocked himself unconscious and would never wake up due to the fact that his body would then be consumed by a fire.
It just, what can I say? This guy was just, what a walking disaster zone. I mean, oh my God, first he lights himself on fire, and then he falls and hits his head and knocks himself out. I mean, oh my God.
It really is just a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
It's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's just amazing that it goes in that sequence. Let's move to Robert Bailey. He is the homeless man that was found in the building biting the newel post.
Yeah.
So no external means of ignition were found on his body, meaning he wasn't a smoker. But he was known to be an alcoholic, and I feel so bad for this guy because, oh my God, was he on rock bottom? Because he was he was
drinking Jack Daniels, right?
No, he was drinking denuded alcohol.
Denatured alcohol?
Denuded. What did I call it? Yes, denatured alcohol, which is the stuff that they use to
paint thinner.
Yes, I mean it's stuff you use to clean like goo off of the walls.
Now, isn't that like wood alcohol or something? Isn't that like poisonous?
It's one step above
rubbing alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol. Thank you. Like this poor guy was so far down the well that he was drinking poison to get his fix. And if he is drinking that stuff, it is doing bad things to his body.
Oh, yeah.
And he is probably more than drunk. He's probably a little high from it.
Yeah.
And one thing that if you've ever seen a sloppy drunks tend to wear what they're drinking because they miss themselves and they dribble it all over. So he's now covered. He's probably got a good coating of flammable material or flammable liquids on himself.
Just all ready, right? Just all perfectly teed up and ready to be a Human Torch.
So at that point, then all it takes is somebody else smoking a cigarette and flicking an ash at him, or him trying to light a fire and creating a spark, or God knows what. And then this poor soul turns into the Human Torch.
Yeah.
So with him, it seems to be that he kind of is the alcohol theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really is. That's what the alcohol theory is saying is going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just that it's a series of factors.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than one thing. I mean, it's like you're too inebriated. Number one, you're so drunk, you're going to do something stupid and light yourself on fire. Number two, you're so drunk, you
don't know it.
You're not, you don't know it, or you just can't really react to it. Yeah.
You're incapable.
And number three, you've got booze probably all over your clothing and stuff.
Yeah.
Or at least the alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
I feel bad for all these people because people who experience spontaneous human combustion die. They die from it. But this poor guy, he, from the description of his story, was so far down.
Yeah, he was having a really hard time.
Yeah, it's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
So let's move away from Robert Bailey.
I do have to say, fire or no fire, I don't think he was long for this earth if he was
drinking that stuff.
No, I don't think he was.
No, I would not disagree with that. We'll go to Victor in River Ford, which is Henry Thomas. Mr. Thomas, there was evidence of a fire in the fireplace in his house. And they said that, so there's a non-spontaneous human combustion theory, which was that he got up and stoked the fire and then got a spark of the fire in his hair, sat down, and then calmly sat there while he burned up, which is just stupid, because if he is able to move, nobody lets their head just burn like that.
Yeah, you would know if you had a big flaming thing in your hair pretty
Yeah,
quickly.
and an actual crime scene investigator looks like there's absolutely no way that he would just sit there and let that happen
Right.
if he was capable of doing something about it.
Right.
So they think that probably if he did indeed get some spark on his body from the fire, the reason that he didn't then put himself out is he may have actually already been dead. He may have actually died from a heart attack, either through shock or pain or just naturally it just, you know,
was
again,
the wrong
that perfect
time.
series of
Yeah.
events. He went and stirred the fire, looked at it and said, oh, hell, I got a spark on myself, and then had a heart attack and died. And therefore, then he was a perfect candidate for that fire to spread. There's a lot. That one,
Was the flue open in his fireplace?
I do not
Like,
know
could he have
that.
accidentally poisoned himself, like carbon monoxide poisoning or something?
I don't know that, to be honest with you, Devin. So here's the hard part, is that when you do look at the pictures of this, the internet loves to have photos of spontaneous human combustion. What the internet does not like to do is say which case it is, and there are a lot of cases of people burned up on floors or in chairs near fireplaces with no description of who is who.
Yeah.
And so I saw a bunch that I was like, oh, that could be, oh no. Well, that could be, oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Which is why, like,
all kinds of people,
yeah, Mr. Bailey, like, I'm pretty sure I found the photo of him, but I'm not 100% positive
Could have
because
been Mary Reeser. I mean, hey.
yeah, well, actually, there's Mary Reeser's photos are always documented pretty well because she's one of the first one that was photographed, and I think that might be why she's so popular.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the flu was a combination of the last theory, and this
What is
is
that? What?
well, this is the how does it work then?
How do it work? Okay.
This is the wick effect, because everybody seems to be catching fire from these external sources. So again, as we talked about multiple times now, why isn't the entire room around them burning up with them?
Yeah.
And scientists believe that the reason is that there's this thing called the wick effect coming into play. So we're gonna talk about a candle. So you have a candle, a wax candle, and you light the wick on fire, and the heat melts the wax at the top of the candle, and that wax flows up the wick, and that is mostly what's burning. The wick itself is not on fire. It's that fatty material, aka wax, that is allowing the flame to be sustained.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as I never understood this as a kid. You'd see the movies where people would they'd have torches and they'd go into the jungle cave, and I'd be like, wow, their torches burn so long, and then I would get a stick and a couple of rags, and I would light it on
Yeah.
fire,
Yeah.
and it would go woof, and the
Yeah.
fire would be gone.
Yeah.
For me, actually, it would last just long enough to set the house on fire. And then,
Yeah.
Of course, in the movies, what they don't show you is where they put them in some kind of substance that, gasoline or diesel or whatever, so that those fumes are what are burning and not the actual material.
Yeah,
But
the
candles-
rags would burn rather quickly. Yeah,
Right, but
yeah.
the candles are kind of the same thing, is that the wax is flowing up the wick, it is then burning, and the wick itself is not.
As fast. It does burn.
It does burn.
Very slowly,
You
though.
are correct. It is eventually, the wick itself is
Will
eventually
eventually burn.
consumed.
Yes.
And when the candle gets down to the very, very bottom and all of that wax is burned up, the wick itself is completely consumed, and then the fire goes out.
Right.
Because it's got no more fuel.
Right.
Because it's on a metal basin. That's why your house doesn't burn up. But then again, we don't use candles to light our house. Thank God.
Not anymore.
Thank goodness. Okay.
Not here anyway.
No, but theoretically, the same thing happens when the human body catches fire because of a spark. So your clothing typically is made from cotton fibers as well as other fibers, which can be flammable. And a lot of things these days are not. But if we look back in history, that was not so much the case. Pure cotton all the way, baby. It's the best stuff for
Yeah.
burning. And what would happen is that there would be a spark. The cotton fabric would start to burn. It'd be not an open flame, but more of an ember kind of scenario where it's just slowly burning. that would burn the skin, that would split the skin, allowing the subcutaneous layer of fat that we all have underneath our skin to be exposed to the heat.
And it starts melting.
And it starts melting, and that creates the same wick effect where that fat that has been turned into a liquid form is now flowing up into the fabric, and that's sustaining
The fabric
the flame.
of your clothing.
Right,
Yeah.
and it's sustaining the flame. So the fats are burning, not so much the fabric.
Yeah.
And as the flame deepens and grows, it's absorbing more and more and more of those fats. Now, the muscles in your body have much less fat, but they do have fats and acids in them, and those things are flammable. And there's also the fact that, well, your body is made up, as we talked about before, a lot of water.
Yeah.
But if this flame is going on, and this takes hours and hours and hours to happen, what's happening is that the fats are wicking away, and in the heat of this fire, the moisture that is left behind is able to evaporate. That's one of the reasons that a lot of these scenes have this gross, sooty smell
Layer of
to
grime.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Condensation.
it's all
Yeah.
this literally human condensation on the walls and the ceilings because it's evaporated out of the body.
Well,
Now,
that's gross.
it is gross. And this theory, every time I read it, until I found this one study, I thought, that's utter crap. This
Yeah,
just,
but then you watched the thing.
How did they get volunteers for this study?
well, they were brought in by the truckloads.
Okay.
Not really.
Oh.
So here's what the deal is. There is a British show. A BBC has a show, or used to have a show. I think it might actually be back again, but it's QED. And they would look into all these questions and stuff, and they set up an experiment where they took the body of a pig, and they wrapped it in a blanket, and then they lit it on fire.
The pig was dead, I hope, when this
Yes,
happened?
the pig
Okay.
was dead,
Okay.
and they used a pig because pigs are great stand-ins for humans because we're built the same, and it turns out people act like them a lot.
Yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
it's a one-to-one exchange.
Yeah, it's perfect.
For science. And the research and the reading that I've done says that it wasn't easy to start the flame. It sounds like it took them multiple tries to get it right. And they had the pig with a blanket on it in a mocked room, with a TV and a bed and all these things. And it took them multiple tries. But once they got the pig going, it then sustained a fire for about 5 hours. And it consumed most of the pig.
Yeah.
So this seems to support that this is possible. Now, there's all kinds of people out there that poo-poo this, and there are a lot of issues with QED's methods. They were by no means a scientific study.
Sure.
But it does show that if done correctly and under the right circumstances,
It could.
it could happen.
Yeah.
It totally could happen.
You just got to get your subject to lay there catching fire for a long enough period of time.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
the tricky
true.
part. Yeah.
Now, there's a whole host of people out there who have done alternate studies trying to say, because remember, like Mary and Henry were both sitting in chairs, and those chairs were partially consumed. And not just like the outside of the chairs were consumed, but big hunks of the chairs were burned up while big hunks were left behind. Well, some other researchers have tried to replicate that by putting something on the chair and lighting it on fire, making small, controlled, sustained fires. And what they say their evidence shows is that it's very hard to do anything in a small flame situation like that other than to just burn the outer coating, to char it, and not just to catch the thing on fire and have these great sagging holes of material that appear to be left in cases of spontaneous human combustion. So there is this contrary side of research that's like, yo, dude, we tried the other side of your experiment, and it doesn't seem to hold up.
I think the trick with that is because the pig one the chair did get consumed in a similar fashion.
Part of the bed, yes.
Right, or part of the...
Yeah, it was a bed.
Yeah.
They didn't sit that pig up. Give him a cigar and an apple.
So for me, part of it is the fat. I mean,
Fat
as
got down
fat
into
is
the-
liquefying out of your body because you're burning, it's also going to run places, and
Yep.
then that will make that material that much more flammable.
Sure.
And it will pool in certain areas, which will then go up on fire. And then that other one kind of comes into effect where they're like, but it's hard. If there's not that accelerant, it's hard for the chair to catch on fire, so it just goes out.
Yeah, you're basically creating a. You looked into. We've all had those big candles in our house,
Yeah.
with where they create that inch or so wide diameter spot of hot wax in the middle.
yeah.
And if you think about it, if a human body is burning,
Yeah.
the same thing is going to happen. There's going to be that hot well, and eventually, if the wick were to last long enough, the wax on the outside of that well would start to melt in and then wick and then
Exactly.
run up the wick and
Yeah.
continue. It doesn't always happen, but I've had candles that had a 2-inch deep well, and then suddenly the wax on the edges starts just flooding in,
Yeah.
and it burns forever.
Yeah.
Depending on the consistency of the wax and the type of wax,
Right.
most candles we get today are meant to not completely be consumed, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Now, there is other questions here. If this is the case, there are general questions about spontaneous human combustion, and these are kind of outside of the wick theory, but they're with it, so I include them here, which is the bones. We talked about this before, that people who are put into a cremation oven, their bones don't completely disintegrate.
Yeah.
Yet, these people who suffer spontaneous human combustion, it appears that most of their bones are almost completely destroyed by the fire. The stuff I've read, and the stuff I've been thinking about, seems like there's a couple of different reasons for that. One, it's not necessarily the heat of the flame, but more so the duration.
Yeah.
So a cremation takes around 3 hours. And these fires tend to seem to go for about 6 to 8. So it's under sustained heat for a longer time frame. Of course, that heat is going to do a better job of melting things like the bone marrow and having it wick out, which then leaves a hollow, brittle structure that can then be broken down. There is also a lot of research that says not only are the people who are going to experience what appears to be spontaneous human combustion elderly, but a lot of them appear to be women.
Yeah.
And in these cases of women, what they've done is they've studied the bones of women, and they have figured out that osteoporosis is an issue. We all know this for ladies. This is a problem in later life if
Yeah.
you're not careful about it. And the bones of women who suffer from osteoporosis, put under fire, become much more brittle, and they break down much more easily than someone who is not who hasn't lived with that. And so, and now we kick this back to 20 to 100 years back, when there was no research to say you need to do this to prevent it.
Yeah.
A lot of ladies experience that, which means they all were then much more susceptible to not only the dangers of broken bones, but if they had spontaneous human combustion, their bones were gonna just disintegrate under fire.
Yeah.
Of course, by the time that happens, you're all burned up anyway. So what do you care?
Right, but it explains why the bones aren't just sitting around.
Oh, yeah, no,
why,
it does.
Why is there not
Yeah.
just femurs and shoulder or not femurs, but shoulder bones and spines
bones
and
and
ribs
arm
and all
bones,
that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why
But,
aren't they just the game of operation with ash around it?
Yeah.
That's really where that's going.
Yeah. So So there you go.
Yeah, well, and there's other things. There's other questions here that people are asking, which is things like, why is it that the lower legs and the extremities, the hands and part of the forearms are left behind?
Not a lot of fat content.
Well, that is one good point, is that there's not a lot of fat in those parts of the body. There's this also cracks me up, is that the other explanation that I get on the internet is there's this thing called temperature gradient for the body parts, and really what I think this is supposed to boil down to is heat to surface area. There is less surface area on your hand and your wrist than there is, say, to your abdomen, because it's a much bigger area, so it can retain heat, it can cook longer, it can burn more.
Yeah.
But according to the internet, at least in one place I found, which is freaking awesome, it says, oh, yeah, no, that's because those body parts in that temperature gradient, they're burning in the wrong direction. Because according to the internet, if you light them, it will go out.
Yeah,
Now,
well, that's interesting
I have
news.
burned myself
I've never seen that
way
happen.
too many times dinking around with matches to believe that.
Yeah, that's silly.
So I think the temperature gradient part is literally less fat, less surface area, and not they're pointing the wrong way.
Well, especially it usually seems to be legs or a leg at least that survive, and those tend to be lower down, and of course the heat all rises. So it shouldn't be a huge surprise, I suppose, if a leg or two might survive.
And, you know, a lot of times the reason that hands don't survive,
You've got them in your lap, maybe?
well, you've got them in your lap or on your chest or on your abdomen in some way, shape, or form. And so they're on top of that larger heat source, and so they are then consumed. So, okay, so my general takeaway, and you two can tell me your thoughts on this. My general takeaway from this is that I don't think that people just randomly ignite.
No.
I do think that they are in some way incapacitated, and it, to me, the external source of fire is something like a furnace or a fireplace or a cigarette. And I personally am actually interested to see what's going to happen in, say, the next 100 years for cases of spontaneous human combustion, as fewer and fewer people smoke and the fewer and fewer open flame sources are available in the home, to see, you know, do the cases continue steady, or do they go down, or do they go up? I'm curious to see. I have a feeling they're going to go down.
Well, I mean, instead we have cell phones that ignite randomly.
Yes.
Good
so-
point. But
But,
that
you know,
would
that's
leave a
helpful.
telltale bit of evidence. So if you've got a cell phone with a lithium battery right underneath your body,
Yeah, maybe.
maybe. Or
So
I
maybe
mean, it could burn all the way up, maybe.
It's
easily.
very obvious
Yeah,
that
okay,
his butt
yeah.
caught on fire because he had his iPhone in his back pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm joking, but
I know.
I agree. I think, you know, this body burning up phenomenon is real, but I think that there are a lot of external factors that we can use to explain them away.
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, fire doesn't just come out of nowhere, unfortunately.
No, I
Yeah.
think the idea is very titillating. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's entertaining. It draws you in. And, oh my God, this could happen.
Well,
But
it's kind of supernatural, you know. That kind of gets people's
Yeah.
juices flowing.
I also think that a lot of time certain details get omitted, and we see this all the time in stories. And I think that whose story was it? I said this before. It's to sell newspapers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh, for sure.
I
Yeah.
think that was. I think it was your last one.
All of them. I don't
Probably.
know.
Joe. It was
Yeah.
Joe's, I think.
Okay.
But
Whatever.
yeah, but it's all to sell newspapers. You know, that's
Right.
that's what they're doing. So they curtail the facts.
Yeah.
But that is all that we have on spontaneous human combustion.
Oh, by the way, though, if you want to know more, South Park did do an episode on this phenomenon.
Oh yeah.
The hard-hitting documentary, South
Yes,
Park.
exactly.
Well, it turns out
They had
that
a different theory about it.
well, it also turns out that Elvis wrote a song about this.
He did, yeah.
So there is that out there as
Burning
well.
Love by Elvis, yeah. I know.
And there's Earth, Wind, and Fire. They are really all motivated by. All their songs were motivated by spontaneous human combustion.
Let's not forget Cheap Trick had their big comeback hit. You know, the chorus was "I Will Be the Flame."
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chariots of Fire, also
Oh, yeah.
based on people in chariots who caught on fire
Well, why would those-
spontaneously.
Well, we see that every time you see a clip from that movie, those guys are running their asses off. What are they running from? I
they're
can't guess.
trying. They're running
not, yeah,
on
running
the
from
beach
fire
where
yeah,
it's
yeah.
wet, so they don't burn.
Yeah. So okay.
Devin's got the look of she doesn't agree with this.
Yeah.
Devin's got that look of
Been
wrap
going
this
on
up,
for a
guys.
while.
This is stupid. Yeah. That kind of look on her face. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, if you have thoughts about spontaneous human combustion and you want to share them with us, or you want to share a story, suggestion, or just about anything else, feel free to send us an email. That email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. It does take us a while sometimes to get back to emails, so please be aware there's a lot of emails coming in, but we will get to you as quickly as we can. This episode is available for download or streaming, along with some of the research links to it, as well as all of our prior episodes on our website. The website is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On the website, you're going to find on the right-hand side links to merch. You're going to find the full episode list. So we have a chronological list of all episodes that you can spin through rather than going page by page on the site itself. We also have on there links to places that you can find us, because, of course, you can get us off the our website, but people know where they like to listen to us through, so you can do it through Google Play. You could do it through iTunes. You could do it through Stitcher or Stitcher Premium.
Stitcher Premium, yeah!
Links to all that on our website. If you're using one of those sources and they allow you to subscribe and leave a rating and a comment, please do. Positive ratings and reviews help others find us. And if you are a Stitcher user, but you are not a Stitcher Premium member, I'd encourage you to become one, because we are on Stitcher Premium, and by joining, what you get is you get all of our episodes 4 days early. You get them ad-free, and we put out bonus content once a month.
Basically,
that's
an
all
extra
there.
episode a month,
Yeah, and that's all available to you as a Stitcher Premium member. So if you want to do that and you want to get a hold of those benefits, go to Stitcher.com/ThinkingSideways, enter the promo code Sideways, and if you sign up for the 12-month plan, you get 1 month free.
Yeah, it's a pretty
So,
good deal.
yeah, it's totally affordable. It's totally awesome. I know a lot of people, even our moms are doing it, which is really funny, because they're like, I totally know what everybody's going to talk about
Try
on
not to
Thursday.
spoil it.
Yeah, no spoilers, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, where else are we? We're on social media. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a Facebook group. So like the page, join the group. If you want to join the group, you got to answer the questions. They're super easy. I think you can figure it out, but lots of fun discussions happening there. So not only are we on Facebook, but we are on Reddit. We've got a subreddit. We are on Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways, where Devin puts out all kinds of funny content. We are also on Instagram, where we're Thinking Sideways Podcast, so you can get the show links as well as other funny photos that Devin puts up.
Steve sometimes puts stuff up too.
I occasionally put stuff up. Did the microphone sock photo go up?
I don't know.
Oh, we need to make sure that goes up, because that was I came up with a pretty clever way to keep my P sounds down on a microphone.
Pop filter,
My pop filter.
I'm not putting that pop filter up. It's gross.
Oh, it's not gross. It was freshly laundered.
It didn't look laundered. It looked kind of brown to me.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So I think that is all of the places that you can find us, support us, do all the awesome things that you want to do. I don't have anything else to share here. We're over an hour in. I didn't think spontaneous human combustion could go on that long, so we should put this fire out, spray some seltzer water on it, and call it done. So until next week, ladies and gentlemen.
Flame on.
Toodaloo. Right now, I got nothing.
That was really watered down.
Yeah. Thank God.
Hey guys, Steve here. You are listening to one of our original 26 episodes. If you've listened to any of our new episodes, you're going to notice that we're sounding a little different in these ones.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
There is.
They've been remastered.
They have been remastered.
Because they had a really annoying hum.
Yeah, I mean, a huge thanks to listener James for doing almost all of the legwork on this thing.
Yeah.
You'll also notice if you had listened to what we're calling the Lost 26 episodes before, and you're re-listening now, the music and sound effects are gone.
Yes, we've gone back to straight audio. So be warned, we sound a little different today than we do in what you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. As distinct from Thinking Sideways, the movie, Thinking Sideways, the novel. This is the podcast. So I am joined by, on my right,
Devin.
And on my left, actually straight in front of me,
Steve.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the gang's all here. And we're going to talk about something very mysterious, an unresolved mystery from the 1970s. It is, some of you may have even heard of this, the case of the Isdal woman. The Isdal woman was found dead in late November 1970 near a town called Bergen, Norway, in what's called the Isdalen Valley. The valley sort of tapers down towards this mountain called Mount Ulriken, which is to the northeast of Bergen. And on that side of the mountain is called the Valley of Death.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to say, I was waiting for the connection of like how Joe might have found this story.
Yeah, you've got a thing for the Death Mountain.
Yeah, I just go and type in Valley of Death, Mountain of Death, River of Death.
Lake of Death.
Yeah, Lake of Death,
Yep.
Creek of Death, Toilet of Death, and I always find something. So November 29th, on the foothills of Mount Ulriken, a man who's apparently a professor and his two daughters were hiking, and they came across the remains of a naked woman who'd been hidden among some rocks. She was partially burned. There were some empty bottles, plastic bottles, which smelled of gasoline nearby. Also a bottle of sleeping pills. So they, I don't know if they finished their hike or not. Presumably they walked back to town and got the police.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I would think so. And by the way, this place is called the Valley of Death because there's a lot of trails there, some of which apparently, according to a website I was reading about that was totally separate from this entire thing, some of the trails are not very well maintained, and it's considered, and they're rather treacherous. So that's why it's called the Valley of Death, not because corpses are found up there all the time.
Okay.
So anyway, the police show up, and this winds up being the biggest criminal case at the Bergen police. It's not a huge town by any means.
And it's in the Netherlands, right?
And no, it's Norway.
Didn't you say? Oh, Norway.
Norway, yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, Netherlands. It's all the same.
Same thing,
Yeah,
really.
same thing, really. Yeah. So anyway, I mentioned they found some plastic bottles reeking of gasoline, and they also found a partially burned passport, and again the sleeping pills. She also, and it turned out that upon the autopsy, that she had some of those pills in her.
So she had taken a couple of pills, presumably.
She had taken several of these things, yes. Some more interesting things. I mentioned the passport and the sleeping pills. And this is one of those dealios where I really, really would like to be able to see the actual police reports because, what I've been able to round up is kind of spotty. For example, the body was naked, right? Mm-hmm. So were there any clothes nearby? There's no mention made of that. So
was there burned up clothes
were there burned clothes
near her? Because you said she had been burned, correct? That's where
her body
the gasoline connection is?
Yeah, her body had been partially burned. Presumably, they don't say what parts were burned, but presumably it must have been her head. Mm-hmm. Because they weren't not able to take any photographs of her face, to show to people.
Because there was nothing recognizable left.
But apparently they were not able to get a photograph out of the passport that they found because that had apparently been burned also. It's probably why it was burned. So anyway, they had a problem with how to identify this person. Her fingerprints had been sanded off.
Did you ever find, when I was looking through this, I could never find, were they sanded off prior to death or had they been sanded off weeks in advance? I was never able to pin down, was this done to her after she was killed?
Well, that's after she was killed. But, there are people who are, criminal types who don't want to leave fingerprints behind, and they do sand off their fingerprints. It's not totally uncommon. You can either use sandpaper or acid to get rid of those fingerprints. As far as when they were sanded off, later on they found some luggage. I'll get to that, but they found some pieces of glass in the luggage, and it had partial fingerprints on the glass. And police reportedly believe that those were her fingerprints, although they were never able to use those to identify her.
Oh, okay.
But if police believe that they were her fingerprints, then that makes me believe that somebody must have sanded off her fingers after they murdered her.
That would make sense,
yeah. So, but again, I'm not 100% sure. Again, as with all of these things, little stray factoids that aren't really actually true manage to get worked into the story by other people.
Yeah.
And so as far as the pieces of glass with the fingerprints, I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows if any of this is true? Who knows if Norway even exists? It might be a big old hoax. I've never seen it. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, as I said, they did an autopsy on her. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the neck, and this was apparently the cause of death, or if not the cause of death, then certainly a contributor to it. Then again, they discovered several sleeping pills in her system. They looked at her teeth, and they tried to find her using her dental records, and that came back nil. They were not able to identify her that way. There was evidence that she had some dental work done in Latin America.
Wait, how?
Yeah, how?
How do you
What
know
can
that?
you tell?
This is again something I know that like certain things, like for example, if you get dental work done in Russia, it's kind of obvious apparently because it's kind of crude. And
Okay.
it might be, and I was not able to find out how they knew it was anything to do with Latin America, unless customarily in Latin America, perhaps they use different materials for fillings.
Or techniques,
or different
maybe?
techniques. Yeah, so I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of those things.
Yeah, how do
I
you-
questioned how did you make that connection, because it's not stated anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, enough of the dental work. I'm going to skip ahead to the ending. They eventually wound up concluding that she committed suicide.
What?
Yeah, now this is somewhat controversial, but let me get back to their investigation, though. They first of all, they were asking around all the people. She stayed at several hotels. She had actually come and gone to the town of Bergen several times, and meanwhile gone off and traveled around Europe a little bit, returning. And while she was there, she tended to change hotels often, and sometimes within hotels she would change rooms. So interesting behaviors.
Yeah,
So
that's a little odd.
yeah, so the police asked around at all the hotels. They got descriptions from people, and based on the bone structure they were able to see in her face from the autopsy and everything, and pairing that up with police sketch artists and descriptions that hotel employees gave them and various other people, they were able to put together a composite sketch of this person and show that around to people. So anyway, they continue with their investigation. Eventually it led them to the train station in Bergen, where they found in a locker, they found 2 suitcases that belonged to this woman. Yeah, I know. Oh.
This sounds so... Okay.
Sounds so much like Tom and Trude. I know. Do you think they might have been related?
Maybe.
Yeah. All right.
Who's his girlfriend?
She was the murderer.
Yeah. It's something shrewd, but anyway, I haven't checked. Actually, I need to get a globe out and find out if this town in Norway is exactly on the opposite side of the earth from Adelaide. It was Adelaide,
Yeah.
Australia.